welcome to another episode of The Language Lounge. My name is Michelle Ola, and I am the host here today, and I have with me Jenny Delfini. Jenny is an amazing Spanish now, right? Or French? You do both,
I've done
correct?
both.
Or have you done both?
I've done both. It's currently Spanish.
It's currently Spanish and elementary teacher. And we're going to talk today about kind of the beginning of the school year and goal setting. And more realistically, or more importantly than just setting the goals, is how do we follow through with those, right? How do we break those goals down? How do we really hit our targets and not give up and get frustrated and lots of things like that, right, Jenny? So why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us your kind of some of the hats you wear and the context that you're coming from with teaching and where you're at.
Thanks, Michelle. So I am an elementary Spanish teacher in the Hudson Valley of New York. It's about an hour north of the city. I've been there for quite a while now, about over 15 years. Before that, I did a few years of middle school French. So I've worn a few hats in the latest years, I feel. I've taken on the executive track of our state organization, NYSAFLT. And I've really enjoyed getting to know people on that end of things. I recently was a facilitator with our state ed department for world languages and leading a book study. And I'm involved a little bit with taking pictures at the regional NECTWL conference and updating their social media page. And I am a Lil advocate, which is how I met you, Michelle, at one of the...
Exactly. That is how we met.
And lots of other amazing people, too.
It's been a couple of years now, right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And we actually did have a different topic we were going to talk about. And I think we're going to still bring that back in the future. And that is what you're doing with NYSAFLT and the book study and how you kind of run a book study. And we might still get to that, I think, because I think that's something that is really people are really interested in right now, is how to have, alternate forms of professional development and not just a webinar or, a PD workshop or something, but book studies and podcasts and different things like that as well. So, we're going to kind of weave that into this as well. But when we were talking to, before we hit record, we kind of talked about down here in Florida and down here in the South, they started back school. So most of the students started yesterday in my region. I know you're up in New York and you don't start for a couple more weeks. So you're lucky that in that respect. And there's other places in the country that have a few more weeks left, right? But a lot of teachers are heading back into the classroom. And I think one of the things that we were talking about is we come in to a new school year very excited, there's of course some apprehensions, but, very excited. We're ready to be there. And we have some goals, right? We have some big goals that we want to kind of accomplish. I think that's natural for any kind of a new year, new start sort of thing. And I think sometimes we're really good. Let me speak for myself. I'm really good at setting the goal, but then the follow through, right? Or the how do you do it? What are the steps? How do we actually meet this goal can be the challenging part, right?
Same, yeah. We were talking and we kind of led down this path of how things like book studies and professional development can help you achieve your goals. And even as I was just thinking about, I have, like Michelle said, I'm on vacation still. So it's like, oh yeah, I have to get my head back in the school mode and what kind of goals. And I think we've kind of grown in what kind of goals we set, because we do have, after the pandemic, we want to support our students in their social, emotional well-being. So teachers have so many things added to their plates, right? So we have this now on there and we have to make room with the other things. But we always have those language-specific goals and our actual classroom goals. And so usually at the beginning of the year, I sit down and I kind of go through I like to take out the TEL teacher, I can't think of the actual name of it, but there's the teacher checklist and what the different categories are, and kind of go through your by yourself. I sit down quiet and I go through and I'm like, well, what should I work on this year? What would really help me in my classroom? I work with students ages 8 to 11. I see them 20 minutes every other day. So where can I get the most kind of bang for my buck, right? What can I really see where can I get a result that I can see and help those students? And then many of those students I've seen, especially the fifth graders, I had them, this is my third year with them, so I can really see the growth, which is kind of a gift that I know a lot of teachers, especially in high schools and middle schools, don't get. So I can really kind of see how they're growing, both in their just language, but in their confidence in using their language. You know, if they go from someone who just sat quietly, and I could kind of see from their facial expressions, or, you know, they'd give a thumbs up or a down, but now they're raising their hand. Now they're really talking. They're, you know, they're calling out. You know, I have to tell them to be quiet now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So there's different language goals. And then also I like to look at ACTFL and our state standards. New York's just revised their standards to align more closely with ACTFL's standards. So we have a better guide as to what should be happening in our classroom and what should it look like. And the core practices, which of the core practices should I work on this year? You know, I think a lot of us know our strengths, but it's hard to identify our weaknesses sometimes. So you have to be honest with yourself. First, you have to be honest with yourself from the get-go and say, look, I know this is my weakness, and I know that this is something that I need to do in order to make myself a stronger teacher, and to really, not even about yourself as a teacher, but your students. Like, this is going to ultimately help them.
This is what they need, right?
We are here for them,
right?
Really.
I love that. I think that's the first step, right? Is really thinking about that goal. And like you said, being honest with yourself, doing some self-reflection, basing it on a kind of a guiding document or a guiding principle in our field. You know, you mentioned a couple of the TEL project. We're going to list these all in the show notes. So the TEL project is for teachers' effectiveness. Teacher effectiveness for language learning, I think is what it stands for. You know, your state standards, the ACTFL core practices, you know, whatever those might be, like picking something that has, like you said, a lot of bang for its buck, right? Those are high leverage teaching practices that you can really focus in. So I love that. And then the next thing I want to focus in on is tell us about not only just being honest, but being realistic, right, in your goals. And honestly, I kind of want to just say goal. Yeah. I think maybe we should make it singular because you're right. We can get overwhelmed if we look at the whole TEL document, or if we look at the whole, you know, all 6, you know, core practices. Actually, now there's double that because there's 2 volumes of the Glisson and Donato book, or the state standards, right? It can get overwhelming. And we look at this list of all of the things we have to do, right? And so really, you know, what would you recommend how to focus in on some of the key ones, or what are something that you have focused in on?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it made my brain automatically went to, instead of goal, it went to Meredith White's priority, and there should only be one. And that's really what, I mean, you have too many things, right? And suddenly we're multitasking, and we know that that's not the greatest thing in the world. So yeah, it's almost, you have the different pieces, right? And you sort of have that Venn diagram with however many circles you want to put around it. And then what's in that middle chunk? Like, what aligns the most that would benefit your students the most during this year, right? Now I lost my train of thought and what you had asked me.
That's all right.
How I determine what I'm going to do, right? Kind of how you say it. So I think I just said it. I think I just said it.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah. So, but again, I think picking those really, that core one that is really fundamental, I guess.
And I honestly think that unless you're a native speaker, and even if you are a native speaker, I don't know in the culture of your school if it's something that you've been taught not to do, or if it's not part of your practice because the standards, actual standards, and the 90% is so new. But I think a lot of us struggle with using target language. I think a lot of us are fine when we're actually in the meat of a lesson, or at the very beginning of the year, and we're all gung-ho, and, you know, it's like New Year's resolutions for teachers, right? September, October, right. We're doing great. And then suddenly, you know, you've got kids leaving on field trips, or you've got assemblies that take 2 seconds of your classes, and then you're trying to play catch up. And I think from what I've personally observed, this is a weakness of mine, I feel like in order to keep moving, I need to sort of skip things in the target language to get to the meat of the lesson. But it's all that stuff that I'm doing before and after the meet that is still vitally important and is going to push my students and get them into that next level so they can acquire that language and use that language. And I'm also in that mindset of I need to go, 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 go. I feel sometimes I have to backtrack. What am I saying? Am I saying this right? And then suddenly your confidence level in your second language is shaken, just like our students get, and we resort to English. We go back to our first language. So trying to model to students, again, back to the students, what's best for them. We want to model for them the risk-taking and that you can do it. I mean, so many of my students ask me if I was born in France or Spain. I'm like, no, I didn't start learning language until in my age, when I was your age, I didn't even have a language. So for my students, I always tell them, like, you're ahead of me at this point.
That's
they're
awesome.
always like, oh, so she could do it. Why can't we? So really trying to model
I love that. So right there, yeah. I was going to say right there, you just out loud talked a reflection of why target language might be a goal, like a major goal for the school year. I love that. Maybe we just follow that sort of down this path, right? So you've kind of self-reflected on area that you kind of want to improve or do better on, and so then what are some realistic goals? So let's say, for example, a teacher out there listening says, I want to do target language. ACTFL says 90%. I currently do, let's say realistically, and I work with a lot of teachers, and realistically people are honest and they say I probably do 60%, maybe 70%. On a day or for a chunk of time, I might get to 90%. But again, what would you tell them to get started? What is a realistic goal if you're doing 60%?
Well, okay. So let's say that's my goal for this year. I'm going to work on this. So I'm a traveling teacher. I have a cart, but I know a lot of teachers either have like their place in their classroom where they stand, or they have their clipboard that they walk around, or they have something, right? So I like to put every year on a note card something very short so I can write it big, block letters so I can see it from a distance, and put it on my card as a reminder. And some years it's something like, keep them talking. So to get the risk-taking coming out, hear their voice so that even if they're struggling, I'm still listening to hear them. It could be, I'm trying to think of a good one for this year of like stay in it, or stay in Spanish, and just remind myself.
Stick with it. Right. Yeah.
Get over it. Like you're here to teach them Spanish, like teach them Spanish. Right. And that's the thing. Their only access to the language sometimes is we're the only voice they hear in a day that can give them that interpersonal communication, right? They can go listen to a podcast or watch a TV show, but we're their only interpersonal interaction, perhaps. And sometimes it's every other day if you're on block schedule, So we have to remember, we have to be the bigger person, right? And we are here for them. And we've already got our degree. We already speak the language, right? We're trying to get them to get to the language. So reminding ourselves, that might be my reminder this year, is that I already know it. They need to get it. And to give that visual reminder to myself. Then
I love that. I like it. Yeah, that's awesome.
So then my next step would be, I'm thinking if I had to explain this to an administrator, right? Like what's my plan, right? What's my action plan for the year? So seeking out, it could be a book study, could be a monthly group, could be a PD that's offered from a regional, from a local organization. But I have a plan of like how I'm going to stick with this and what my supports are going to be. I don't want to overload myself and make it so many extra hours or so much extra in my life that I'm not going to want to attain it, right? I want to pick things that I'm going to want to do. So reaching out, and this is where it kind of ties in with those other things we were talking about. Yeah. Really, and a lot of times in our schools, we're singletons or very small department, or you don't get the admin support. So in New York especially, I have found immense support and colleagues around the state in NYSAFLT, our state organization for language teachers, right? And NYSAFLT offers, we have an annual conference, we have a summer institute that we do virtually. We did a book study last year with our state ed department. We have webinars, but it's also meeting people and then connecting with them because they're elementary teachers or they teach Spanish at the same checkpoint that I do, or we have a common interest and we're going to make a unit about that. Because it's not like a school where you have 5 math teachers and you sit down and you can talk about curriculum. It's just not like that for language teachers more and more, unfortunately. So really finding your people and finding the brains that you want to connect with and how they support you. And it might be something common, but it could be I connected with a native speaker and I would love to just have phone calls and talk to you in Spanish. And maybe we talk about curriculum, but maybe we just talk.
Just talk. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, but that is so great. I mean, again, like those people that you reach out to, whether it's an organization or individuals or however you make those connections, they provide inspiration, knowledge, accountability, right? Those are the people that are going to help sustain us and meet our goals. Because just saying, stick in it and putting a Post-it on there, it's easy for us to ignore that, right? I mean, we're going to get busy and we're like, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
All of a sudden,
right?
The clipboard's over the message, it's gone. Yeah.
Right. There's a million reasons. And whether it's weight loss, exercise, whatever your goals might be, right? We can adapt and kind of play games. But if you can get that accountability or that support system, that you can hook into, you're more likely to be able to reach your goals.
September is our new teacher resolution month, right? It's like January and everybody's at the gym and then suddenly in February it's a ghost town again.
Right.
So, we've got to get through and find those people that are going to support you. And it's not, I don't want to, accountability sometimes has that negative connotation of there's someone watching you and they're going to penalize you, they're going to judge you. But it's not that. You want to find the people for accountability that are going to support you and help you,
right, and
keep you on your path.
Right. Tell you can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do this, right? I love that. The other thing I'd say, I don't know about you, but I think sometimes I can get into what did somebody tell me it was? Analysis paralysis, right? Sometimes I can decide I need to learn more. I need to learn more. And, I'm not going to really jump in until I learn some more, right?
Yes.
And so, I might read a lot of books and see a lot of webinars, but sometimes the learning isn't what's holding us back, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you kind of touched on that. Sometimes it's, whether it's pressure out, internal or outer pressure to keep moving forward, to go faster, to do whatever, whatever it may be. And I think identifying some of those things that personally hold us back, that challenge us, can be part of that reflection process as well. And then if it is learning, like you said, if the issue is, I just don't know how to do this, right? I just don't know. Let's take target language again. It's one thing to say 90% target language. That sure. Okay. But then making that 90% comprehensible to and understandable to whatever age of proficiency level your student is at. That's not so easy, right? I mean, it takes some practice, it takes some failures, it takes some different knowledge and skills and a toolkit that you build up over time. Right. And
so going back to finding the things that are going to help push you forward, right? And really prioritizing. So a couple things that come to mind as I'm thinking, I'm like, this is my goal for the year. So now I'm thinking about what I can do. So last year, NYSAFLT ran the book study with our state ed department, and it was online because our state is so big. But what was really nice was that we built in breakout rooms where you only had maybe 3 or 4 other participants who read the book, focused on a chapter for the month, and so everyone could really talk. It wasn't a webinar setting where you were just sitting and getting. It wasn't a setting where even if other people were talking, you could kind of hide and not interact. And a lot of the conversations were, I feel validated in how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. and talking about the coming year and what can I do with this chapter? What can I bring back to the table? And so even though it was virtual, there was that connection with colleagues and how to apply what we were learning, which I think is something that maybe a lot of people have been missing the last couple of years. And we're trying to find other ways to get those connections. So we, I had been considering a book study for a while because I've seen them at the elementary level because there's enough people to actually run one in person. And when I brought it up to our board, our executive director at the time, John Carlino, said, State Ed's been thinking about doing this too. So it kind of organically came together. It's a lot of planning to do one, but we'll talk about that maybe on a future episode. But a book study, if you're going to read a book, is a really good way to, like you said, learning, but then what do I do with it? So you have others who are doing the same learning, and you can really talk with them and analyze and formulate more of your plan and more of how you're going to use this in your teaching as you move forward. Another thing that we don't see enough of sometimes, unless you're going to, AATSP or AATF, where there are a lot of them, is going to those language-specific workshops at your conferences so that, sometimes all we're getting is TV shows and podcasts in your target language. Maybe you have some friends that you talk to or your department, you can run your meetings in that language. But like I said, some of us are singletons and we don't have that. So really seeking out the ways to have that interpersonal communication and getting the input so that your language skills are you feel confident in using your language as you go out into the classroom. We're giving our kids all the input, but we still need that too, especially as a non-native speaker. We need to go seek out ways that we can keep our language skills up as well. Also, when you're attending conferences, seeking out sessions where the presenters, where the presentation write-up is, we're going to use what we're giving you. It's not a sit and get, and it's not an explanation, but I'm going to go into that session. I'm going to be a student in that presenter's class, and I'm going to actually see the methods or the research like actively being used in the classroom. I'm going to be one of those students, so I can see how my students would benefit from what that presenter is offering and how I can use that skill, whatever that presenter has, to really bring out more language and to use more language, get my kids to take more risks in the room, put myself in their shoes and get that from them. And there are so many great sessions at conferences. We're starting to see live conferences again for so many different areas. It could be a language conference. It could be your state conference. It could be the regional. ACTFL's in Boston. Anybody in the Northeast, head up there.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited to see all these people I haven't seen in years. But seeking out the PD that's right. Don't just go to something because it's got the keyword. You have to read and see, is it really going to give me what I need? So again, like fine-tuning that plan so it's what you need, it's focused, it's manageable, and it's actionable.
I love that. I also, something you said kind of struck me as well. And that is, when you're at a conference, a PD, a webinar, there usually is some sort of question and answer interaction or something going on. And to just say, what would this look like in a classroom? Because I think we do get hung up, myself included, about the theory, the pedagogy, the best practice, the perfect scenario, right? Yeah. But just bringing it back down and but what does that actually look like? So talking about target language and comprehensibility, but what does that actually look like? What do frequent formative checks of making, to make sure that they understand what you're saying, what does that actually look like, right? And asking, bringing that question up, whether it's to the presenter or if you just grab somebody that was sitting next to you. I'm a big fan of hallway conversations, right? Like that to me is what this podcast is about. It's like you learn something and then you grab somebody and you talk to them about it, right? And you're like, hey, I was just in there with you. So we both have a common interest in this. Like, what do you think, this would look like? What are you thinking you're going to do with this information, right? And just getting that connection that human and, that personal, meaningful, relevant connection about what you're doing is going to make a difference, right?
Oh,
In whether or not this goal is sustainable and whether this goal kind of carries you
absolutely
forward.
And I think after a few years of not having that, we've and a lot of us have relied on, and it's good, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, but those posts are very polished, and we're starting to see a little bit more of the real, but we're not getting, it's not a real-time learning curve. It's yay, my end goal. Right. But many of us are on a trajectory and a path. And even those teachers that are posting those like perfect shiny lessons have had falls. They've had work that they've done to get up to that point. And that can kind of hit your confidence level too, saying, I'm not at that level. I mean, this person is doing this. Where am I at? And you have to remember everyone's on their personal journey. Some started before you, and that's okay. You're starting yours now. Yep. These are great resources to look for and to use, but you have to adapt them to your own situation and your own students and your own classroom, your own school, whatever that means. So take all of that, with a grain of salt, and remember that that's one person in one classroom halfway across the country. I'm going to take that idea, take that step, take that practice that they're using and apply it to me. And that might look different, and that's okay.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the fact that, we're so lucky in so many ways that there is so much both high quality professional development out there. Since the pandemic, that has intensified the webinars, the e-courses, the Facebook, the Twitter, the interactions. There's so much good stuff out there, right? And you see a lot of examples of what teachers are, like you said, that perfect example of that lesson that they're sharing, which is wonderful. And we can see all of that. But then the problem is we can also take all of that in, and we can see all of that. And sometimes that is not matching our reality, right? Kind of going back to the beginning. Yeah. If you're doing 50%, target language right now, good job. Okay. First of all, yay you. Okay. And if your goal is eventually to get to 90%, fantastic. If that's your goal, that may not be your goal for whatever reason, but we're going to kind of just try and do more and more. Right. And again, don't try and go from 50 to 90. Well, some people will go all in and do that, and great. If that's you, fantastic. But that can be, also very stressful. It can be very difficult. It might not be a realistic goal, but me saying I'm going to do 100% target language anytime I introduce new vocabulary and students are processing new vocabulary, 100%. The rest of the time, I'm going to do my darn best, to give directions, to do routines. I'm going to try and do all that, but I'm going to go all in for this one section. Yes. Right. Setting a realistic goal of what you can do, I think is so important, because if you don't, every time you don't meet that goal, like you said, your confidence, it just kind of goes down, and your energy and your enthusiasm.
Yes.
Right?
And we've seen this with our students in the past year, and maybe I've seen it more at the elementary level, but if a student's not able to meet a goal repeatedly, you see deflation, you see a lack of confidence, you can see them retreat. If you're giving small step goals, and maybe this is us having to rethink what we do, right? We know this goal, but maybe we need to build in smaller baby step goals for them and for us, so that they can see, oh, I'm growing. Sometimes it's hard for students to see that, especially in language and output. Everyone thinks output is the marker for that accountability and am I learning, right? But we know as teachers, we know that output is one of the last steps. And you are learning even if you can't necessarily interact fully in the language yet. You're still acquiring what you need to make that happen. So giving them those little markers and giving them those little goals to attain. And this applies to us now too. If we get little goals, we see progress. So imagine your student is seeing a little bit of progress. Well, we're going to see that same little bit of progress in our goals. Like you said, if I'm attaining the new vocabulary 100%, yes, I met that goal. I might not have done it with the other parts of my lesson, but now I can make that a goal in the months going forward. Always revisiting,
Yeah.
always trying to get to that end goal, right? But a little staircase, little baby
Yeah.
steps.
So that brings up another kind of tangent conversation. So on Twitter, and actually I had a conversation with Julie Spino a couple months ago now about can-do statements. And it's been brought up on Twitter again by Diego Ojeda, and talking about how can-do statements can actually kind of work against you sometimes. Because again, if I say I can do, target language 90%, what does that mean if I can't do it? Right. And so I think it's just a very interesting conversation that's going on right now, and just something to keep in mind. Maybe my goal is I can connect and communicate in Spanish with my students. And maybe that's my big goal. And that 90% is not right. And it's something I'm reaching for and trying to do better at continually. But I just thought that was an interesting conversation that's been happening about can-do statements, and what your goals really are.
Well, yeah.
And so our real goal is to communicate with the students and provide input, right? And to have them understand what you say. So anyways, I just thought that was a interesting,
well, it is very interesting
conversation to join on.
Yeah. And I go back to, I've been teaching for 20 years now, and different iterations of goal setting by admin at the beginning of the year, right? But one of them at some point was like 75% of your students will. And it's like, well, what about those 25%? Like, what happens to them? I want them to do good too. Yeah. Why can't my goal be something that 100% of them can attain? They should all be able to.
I think it's just right. I think it just gets us thinking about our goals and thinking about what works best for us, right? So if it's motivating for you to say, 100% of my students during this time block is going to, reach this goal, or if it's something more generic, whatever it is, find a goal that works for you, right? That's realistic. I think one of my favorite formats that I like to use when I'm thinking about goal setting, and when I'm thinking about what I should do. I don't know if you've ever heard of the what, so what, now what. And so it's like, what am I going to do? Or what have I learned? So what does that mean to me and to my students? And then now what am I going to do about it?
I love
right.
That,
so just like really running through that, I think is really helpful to me. So what is my purpose, to use target language. So what does that mean? Why is that important? So what does that mean to me? What am I going to do? And now what am I going to do about it? Right. And so just kind of a format like that, I think, can be helpful, as opposed to like SMART goals or, something like that, which we can write up, but they don't always motivate us to.
And I think I love that, that what, so what, now what. And I think that can be applied also to how are you going to obtain this goal? So here's a great PD. Okay. So what does that mean to my classroom and my goal?
So what? Right.
Okay. This is awesome. Yep. And I personally would love this, but is it really focusing, or should I go to this other thing over here that is much more closely aligned to what I want to end up with in the classroom? That's a hard choice too, because sometimes we need to make hard life choices. Again, modeling for our students.
Yeah.
You need to choose the things.
100%.
And I'm one of those people where I'm like, I want to do all the things. I'm going to go to all the PDs and all these things and get all the hours. And then you come back and you're like, oh my God, I'm PD overloaded. What was important? What am I really taking away? So you really have to fine tune, especially I feel more and more as we move forward that we're getting down to bare bones of what's good teaching. And the essential question for me is, what is best for students? How is this helping my students? How is this getting them to acquire more language and use more language? And if it's not doing that, out the window it goes. So many projects, elementary schools especially, like they love projects. And I had a classroom teacher ask me, what happened to I forget which one it was. I think, paper flowers. We made the marigolds, at the end of October. What happened to that project? It was so cute. And you have to say, well, they do all these fun projects in art class where they're learning skills, and they do it in your room because they have the time at the end of the day and you're not calling it instructional time. I have them for 20 minutes, and for them to sit folding papers sometimes, I have to figure out, is that really a valuable use of my time and their time with me? So, and that was a hard decision. That was a really hard decision because it is fun and I want them to have fun with me, but I couldn't work in enough language time into that. You know, it's all motor skill, and all they are so focused that they're not listening to anything. Many of them, you know, some can multitask, but not many. So I had to really say, was this a worthwhile use of my time?
Yeah.
Tough decisions.
It is. It's fun. I've got a couple podcasts coming up for that we're touching on throughout the next couple months. One of the things we're going to talk about going a little bit deeper is goal setting, but the other one is conferences and how sometimes they can be counterproductive as far as we do go to all the things, right? We go to like this wide range of, varied topics. And at the end, we come back and our head is spinning and we literally, don't take time to process any of it. We don't have the time. We end the conference on a Saturday or Sunday and we start class again on Monday. And that can be, so even a goal of making sure I schedule time to process my learning and to ask myself, so what, now what, that might be an action step that you need to do, so, but even just the fact that we just get overloaded with so many things and we just can't productively put everything into practice. We can get all these great ideas, but at the end of the day, like you said, if I'm not bringing it to my students and they're not benefiting from it, what, is that, it may be valuable to me as a person and that's great. But we want to kind of think about as far as our professional learning goals, whether or not that is what we want to do.
There's
or,
many things that when you attend a conference and it goes through your head, this is going to be a great workshop. And it might be. And it might be something that you're like, one day I'll teach AP. One day I'll teach Spanish 2. No, I'm not teaching Spanish 2 right now. I'm not teaching AP. It's not on the radar. I need to find the sessions that are going to help me now, that are going to help my students now. Because guess what? They're going to offer AP and Spanish 2 sessions at every conference you go to.
Right.
Those won't go away.
Take it again.
You'll get there, especially when it's applicable and you're teaching Spanish 2 or you're teaching those AP classes. They'll still be there. There'll still be opportunities for you. Teachers we have FOMO like you can't believe. We go to a conference and we're like, I want it all. I want to be doing something every minute of the day. But maybe you attended a great session and now you connected with the person sitting next to you. And you two want to skip the next session and go really dive into what you just witnessed for the last hour. Because an hour is not enough sometimes. An hour is not enough. You need more. And then you need that interpersonal hashing with someone else to talk about it.
Yeah, that processing time.
And we need to understand that that's important as much as the delivery, but also the processing and the reflection. And especially with someone else, I think is very important.
Yeah, it was really great. So this summer, on that kind of note, for NEL, the National Network of Early Language Learning, the NEL Summit, one thing we did was we built in 20 minutes after every session to come back. You could either take a break, because some people process things differently. Some people need to just do it themselves, like by themselves and write or reflect or, make a plan. And that's great. But a lot of people do want to process that together. And so we provided breakout rooms just for 20 minutes after every, I think it was 20 minutes after every session. No agenda, no like reflect on these questions, like literally just get in a room with a couple other people and talk about what you just saw and share your learning and what you're going to do next with it. And we've done three NEL Summer Summits since the pandemic, and everyone we've tweaked a little bit, and we've done things a little bit differently. And this format, I think, is one that we are going to really stick with, because it's that combination of getting the knowledge and the perspective from that expert speaker, that presenter, sharing what they've learned and what they know, and in the process of learning. And then it's combined with that really important connection for people, right? And in
Yeah.
between and with people to connect.
And
that
especially
learning.
in this world of the virtual meetings where there's
Yeah.
not that really that time, because everyone signs on 1 minute before the presenter starts.
Yep.
You know, you have to be off 1 minute after it ends, because then the organization needs to do something with it. So I am remiss I did not mention Nell in one of the organizations that one should join, especially if one teaches K-8, being a member and talking to the president. It's a great organization if that's your niche, and that's
times, it's finding your people.
It's finding your people in the right places, and Nell does a great job of offering that, because as a nationwide organization, there's not a lot of time where you can have face-to-face, and Nell has done a great job with the Summer Summit of providing that format and that space for singletons from, you know, I could be in New York and talking to someone from California or talking to someone in Oklahoma about what we do. And our classes will be more similar than my colleague who teaches at the high school. So yeah, totally about finding your people.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, any other thoughts or ideas of, you know, that you want to kind of share with teachers out there that are thinking about their back to school year goal, plural, and how they can identify it, apply it, break it down, find your people, reflect on it. Any other tips or tricks or observations you'd like to make about that?
I think it just comes down to really that essential question of what will benefit my students the most, and really identifying where's my weakness. What do I need to strengthen to help them more? Mm-hmm. I've become more of a minimalist in my recent years in all areas of life, and I'm definitely becoming one in teaching. And I really feel that there's so much extraneous things. There's so many extras that we throw in, bells and whistles, that, okay, maybe once in a while, but you have to get down to good teaching. You have to get down to what they need. Maybe that's a byproduct of only seeing them 20 minutes at a stretch, you know, every other day. But
you have to
every
have
minute counts,
right? But
every minute counts.
I think every world language teacher I've ever talked to, though, if you ask them, they'll always say, I don't have enough time with my students, right? Yeah. I think no matter how much time you have, like I don't have enough time, whether it's in 1 year or we only have them for 3 years of high school or whatever it is. I feel like that's always, going to be the case, so I 100% agree. Again, we didn't talk about that, but that whole idea of minimalism, and I did a 3 episodes about that, because I think it is so important. And, just really, like you said, being intentional and getting down to what that is that's really going to move you forward in your understanding of how to be a highly effective world language teacher, and what that looks like with students, and how that's going to affect their learning, their language learning, and really honing in on that, I think is so important.
Focusing on it and
just getting motivated by it, right? Getting excited about it. Like, don't pick a goal.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, focus on your weakest, but don't pick one that you're literally like, oh my God, I just dread the thought of doing this, right? That's not going to be good either. So connect to one that's meaningful, right?
Well, and maybe you have the same goal as someone else. I mean, maybe you are lucky to have a colleague in the area, or that you've connected really well with from a conference, even though they're far away. But maybe you both kind of sit down and be like, I want to work on this too. Let's do this together. And then you have someone.
Let's make it fun. Yeah, because
making
I
it fun.
I feel like so.
You have someone to hold you accountable. That accountability piece as well. Like sitting down at the beginning of the week, where can I strategically really, like, I'm going to say, this is my goal for this lesson. This is my goal for Monday, or this is my goal for this class period. And then reflecting on it at the end of the week. Did I do this? What could I have changed? What am I going to do next week?
Yeah. And there's a lot of general books, not teaching books, like self-improvement books about goal setting, about habits, because a lot of goal setting is habit too. Like just, we're in the habit of, especially going back to target language, we're in the habit of just the minute they start fussing, we give them to them in English because we just don't want it. That's our habit. And they know it's our habit. And so they're going to fuss because they know we're going to give it to them in English, right? So there's some habit sort of things as well that go along with all of this. But, taking some, ideas from that as well, as far as just, positive reinforcement. So let's say you do your goal. So what's what's bringing you joy out of it, right? And capturing those and, giving yourself, some little rewards for that, or finding ways to just make it more fun, and hopefully, to really, enjoy the process, right?
Well, yeah. And hopefully, because you're doing these things, you will start to see your students on their end doing the things that you want them to do and having more, taking more risks, and
that's going to be your positive. Yeah. That's going to be your positive reinforcement, right? Is when you start seeing that they're not fussing every time you speak the target language because you do it consistently. And you moved through that hump and now they're responding to it. Right. And I think picking up and making sure you celebrate those wins is important too. Right. Awesome. Well, this was really fun. Thank you so much. I know we kind of switched gears at the last minute of what we were going to talk about. So I appreciate you being so flexible. And I think this is something that I hope, good luck on your goal of that. And if there's anybody out there that also has the goal of increasing your target language and sticking, and not even so much increasing it, but sticking with it, right? And kind of not letting other things get in the way. I love that. Very realistic, I think. Jenny, are you on, I know you are, but are you on Twitter or Instagram where people can reach out and tag you and say, hey, I've got that goal too. Let's work on it together.
Absolutely. I am at JL_Delf, DELF. I have a really old Twitter name. It's just my name, it's a play on my name. So that's both Twitter and Instagram. And I hope to connect with others that want to do this. If you teach elementary, if you teach Spanish, and or any other language, and you want to just stay in the target language, having someone to just nudge you every now and again or check in, feel free to reach out. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michelle.
I love it. It is so much better to do it together. Thank you, Jenny, for coming in today. And I look forward to hoping and seeing how great you do with your goal this school year. But enjoy 2 more weeks of vacation first, right? Have a great one.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.